Good evening. Another Tuesday evening. What a glorious day it has been. Kind of warmed up in the end, but fantastic day. Again, I'd like to say welcome. If you're live, I think I might be on Facebook this evening. I'll find out in a few moments. Certainly on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube. So I'm just waiting for my sound engineer to do her thing. Tonight we're going to be talking about Blackened Gold, and I'm going to explain. So if you're watching, I will be explaining what Blackened Gold is, its purpose, and how relevant it is to those of us who experience moral injury. So as to say a little bit more about that in a bit. So I'm just waiting for my engineer to do her thing, and to let me know shortly. But anyway, yes, oh, brilliant, on YouTube, right? So I'm still waiting for Facebook. I've got it all linked up for Facebook, and I've just got a reminder to say that it's working. So I'm not too sure what's going on. So I still need to do some more work on it. But anyway, really good to see you all this evening. So thank you very much indeed. So Blackened Gold, my name is Delroy Hall, trained psychotherapist, over 30 years experience, certainly leadership development, and trainer and lecturer, also author as well. So I started this project, 4 years ago during lockdown. Never dreamed for one moment 4 years on I'll still be doing it, but also this amazing topic of moral injury. Certainly people have been contacting me literally from different parts of the world, explaining what they've gone through. So if you're here for the first time, I'd like to say welcome. For about 20-25 minutes maybe, that we'll be looking at moral injury. Tonight we're looking at moral injury, Blackened Gold. And moral injury really is a disruption of one's values, certainly taken from the returnees from the Vietnam War, but it has its roots in kind of Greek mythology. Vietnam War, in fact, in the last article that I wrote about kind of spiritual disruption, religion has been dealing with moral injury for centuries, even before our understanding of it now. So it's not really a new phenomenon, but I think for many people, even now when I talk to people about moral injury, it's something they've never heard before. But it really is a disruption of values, and values are what we live by. And I'm going to say a little bit more about that in a moment. So these are just hints and tips. It's just offering some insight, and I'll be providing a link for moral injury partnership. Somebody contacted me. Well, we got into a little exchange on LinkedIn today. She's part of a major network in Wales and Cardiff. I'll give you the link right at the very end. So yeah, so we're looking at moral injury, Blackened Gold. Also, before I really kick into the session, I really want to say thank you for individuals who have shared their stories with me. Maybe not everybody verbally, some verbally, but certainly either direct messaging me or on LinkedIn or privately, some of the horrendous stuff they've been going through. So thank you very much for sharing your story. And part of the storytelling is what helps people to get through to a place of resolution and healing. So this idea of Blackened Gold. So two things I want to say to you. If you're listening for the first time, great. Also, just wanted to say that I started this 4 years ago, not thinking 4 years on I'll still be doing it. I would just say to anybody, if you've got an idea, start it. So I said to somebody recently, if you told me that 4 years on you'll still be doing it and you'll be engaging in this topic, I would have laughed at you. Anything you want to do, start it. And as Danko says, start it and learn as you go on. You'll never get it perfect. So what lots of people do, they wait for it to be right or perfect before they start. Start, do it, make the mistakes, reflect, tweak what you do, and go again and keep going. So I just want to encourage anyone that might be listening today. It might not be on social media. It could be something at work. It could be a project in your community. It could be a project in your church, something in the house, wherever it might. If you've been playing around with the idea, just do it, start, and see what happens. So yeah, just do it. So Blackened Gold. This came about after listening to a friend of mine who was experiencing moral injury, but also somebody else who we'll be speaking to sometime this week, who shared something with me. And the person made a comment, and the person said, in 10 years' time, I look back at this and in terms of a great thing. And I was just thinking about this idea of gold, but also this idea just came to me, Blackened Gold. So what I did, I just Googled it. And sure enough, something came up. If you've been with me when I did some work around the inner tsunami, again, that was just a phrase. Googled it. Sure enough, from the world of oceanography, inner tsunami is something that's real, and so forth. So blackened gold. So basically, what happened? It's gold that's put through a process of electrolysis. And electrolysis, gosh, I did that in physics, so I had to really kind of have a look. Oh gosh, yeah, what was electrolysis? It's a process where an electrical current is passed through a substance or sometimes through a chemical, and it brings about a chemical change. So it's by an electrical current. And what they do sometimes, they use certain techniques and they blacken gold. And what happens? So basically what happens as they put it through this process, the yellow gold, there's this new kind of layer that's created, and they do it for effect, and they do it for quite a few reasons. So here's this process that they go through. They blacken the gold, and it also, what it does, it increases value because of the time that it's taken to blacken the gold. Now the black does wear off, but there's a process that it goes through. It increases in value because of the labor that it's gone through. It does fade with time, but it's used to bring about unique design, to bring about dramatic effect, also to bring about sophistication and to stand out. And as this person shared this idea with me, and as my friend has been talking about moral injury, and as people have shared with me, I wondered. And this is not about psychological reframing. I'll say a little bit more about in a moment. The rationale for me, as I listened to this individual who's gone through this experience, the rationale for me was blackened gold, was that the experiences that we go through can really blacken us, can really shape us, and it does. So during moral injury, it's horrendous. And I made it clear, I'm not talking about psychological reframing. Psychological reframing is where you look at something to see if you can look at it in a different way. But I want to use a quote by Marian Keyes, an Irish author and broadcaster. This is what she says, and I think she's absolutely right. I've wrote a little bit in my last article. I think she's absolutely right. This is what she says. I think there is pressure on people to turn every negative into a positive, but we should be allowed to say, I went through something really strange, and awful as it was, it has altered me forever. For me, that's profound, and I want to share it again. I think there is pressure on people to turn every negative into a positive, but we should be allowed to say, I went through something really strange, and awful as it was, it has altered me forever. I'm making this distinction between moral injury and psychological reframing. I think there's possibly an overlap. Psychological reframing is, something happens, we step back and see, right, can I look at this differently? Moral injury brings about transformation. Nobody experiences moral injury, and when you come out the other side, you're the same person. It's a bit like, sometimes I hear people in my office that they want their old life back, or they want life to go back as normal. It never will, because the event you've gone through has caused so much disruption that when things settle again, it settles in a new place. I think there's a Japanese term called kintsugi, where something is broken and they put it back together, but they put it back together with I guess a form of resin, but also they paint all the broken bits, all the joints in gold. So it goes back, and the idea is that it's more beautiful than the original model. So I want to suggest to us now, of course, this argument may fall down with moral injury from the Vietnam soldiers, what they saw in terms of the children being killed and all that type of thing. However, I'm speaking to somebody who did his PhD on veterans in America, in terms of forgiveness and redemption, he spoke about one individual who didn't kill anybody as such, but he was flying aircrafts, and he was kind of the surveillance and reporting back to his base where people were. And when he kind of saw the enormity of what he was doing after the Vietnam War ended, he then is now become a part of Veterans Against War. But also what he does every week, twice a week, he goes in to visit people on death row. His form of redemption of what's taking place. So his life has been changed beyond recognition. So that's what moral injury does. It's a bit like the comment I made a few weeks ago when I had the flu and I was really struggling. And when I went to the doctors after a couple of months, because I was still not right, he said, the doctor said to me, Delroy, nobody has a touch of flu. You either have flu or you don't. Nobody has a touch of moral injury. You have it or you don't. But when you have it, be assured in right hands, in good care, good support, you will come through it, but you will not come through it and be the same person as you was before. So as we move on today, there's a question I want to ask some of us, those who are listening, either you're listening live or you're listening on catch up. Some people have said they're kind of really busy with kids and all the rest of it. They're going to listen on catch up. There's a question I want to ask you. It's something that I asked my friend up north who's going through moral injury. I asked her a question, and this is the question I want to ask you either live or later on catch up. If you're experiencing or you've gone through moral injury, this is the question I'd like to ask you. As you reflect on your experience, were there signs or were there signs you missed or ignored that indicated it was time for you to leave? Let me just share that question again. As you reflect on your experience, and even now you might be going through something, you recognize the signs of moral injury. Are there signs that you're missing or ignoring that indicate to you it's time to go? When I spoke to my friend, the person thought for a moment and they said yes. And this is what they said. They remained there. They knew it was a toxic culture, but the money was good. And they were, what's the word I used? They were comfortable in a horrible situation. The money was good, they were comfortable, poor management, bad leadership, but they were comfortable. And sometimes, I don't know, some folks will say the universe, some will say it's God. I think at an intuitive level, thoughts and impulses try to get our attention. And what I want to suggest that in some instances, moral injury is almost a get-out clause. Now, I'm not excusing people's behavior, how you were treated, but sometimes as I'm really getting into this more and more, listening to people's stories and asking that question, more often than not, we know when we should move, but we remain. I've shared with you my illness in 2018. I should have left 4 or 5 years before. I know I should have done, but it was comfortable. I was well known. There was status. There was kudos, but I remained. And the illness that I experienced could have been avoided had I left when I should have done. As I said, not in all cases does this marry up. So then you have to kind of see where it fits with you. For some people, of course, so the whole thing around moral injuries from Vietnam soldiers, and then for people, NHS workers, paramedics, especially during lockdown when they just couldn't help people and they felt totally out of control. That's not because they were treated badly. It was just the context at the time. They couldn't help the people they wanted to when they signed up. And so there's a kind of clash of values, wanting to help but can't. And then you've got the third category, there's perhaps more third category for me about people in their workplaces who clearly have been treated really, really badly by their workforce. What I will say, before I forget, for those of you who've been treated badly by work colleagues in terms of moral injury, life has a strange way, of dealing with people. Sometimes those people who treated you badly Not that you're looking for news, but you've left the company, you've left, and they've told you to go, constructive dismissal, or you get the chance to go. You know, sometimes when you hear later, the very individuals who treated you badly, they ended up being treated badly as well. It's just amazing how life goes around. So my friend, she was really good at a job, employed at the same company for over 10 years, went on a secondment, and then within 4 months, that was it, out of the job. Where she'd been, won awards and all that type of stuff. Incredible experience, but then within a short space of time, that was it. This is what I want to say. If you don't remember anything else this evening in terms of moral injury, Blackened Gold, the experience of moral injury disorientates people. But let me just say this. Underneath the black layer, you are still gold. You are still a person with skills, experience, expertise. You're gifted, you're talented. It's just that maybe either you should have left earlier, but you didn't. Something happened. In fact, what's happened in some workplaces, because you've spoken up, that behavior, that mood, that culture was always there. All you did by raising up or whistleblowing, you exposed the culture. That's what you did. You exposed the culture. So underneath this black and gold, you are still gold. It's not the black increases the value, but the real value is in the gold itself. You are still valuable. Do not lose sight of that. I recalled a friend of mine years ago, I shan't name the industry he worked in, but I don't think I mentioned it here, but he said to me one day, he says, you know, Delroy, I've got a manager, they just don't like me. And he'd done really, really well in his job. And one thing I knew, the next thing he was suspended. The person had found something that they'd done many, many years before, and the person, my friend, was immediately suspended. Anyway, this suspension went on for quite some time, and I remember one day just saying to him, and I said to him, you know, look, this may have happened, but don't lose sight of the fact that you're still somebody with this, with talent, all the rest of it. And it was months later when he was reinstated, he said to me, Delroy, and I kid you not what happened. He said, Delroy, you had no idea of how those words impacted me. I was at my lowest. And I kid you not, as he was talking to me, there was 2 black men in our 50s in tears because he was feeling suicidal and I didn't know. And I just said to him, and the same thing I'm saying to you, if you share this with a friend or you know a friend, it might not be moral injury, but they're going through a really bad time at work, many promotions, they're not being seen for promotions and so forth. Let them know that behind all the stuff that's going on, beneath all that, they are still gold. They still have talent. They're still creative, and they're bright, they're smart. It's only in this context they've not been appreciated, but they are still gold. I want you to hear that. You've got to hear that. You are still gold. For me, as I've kind of considered, and I'm looking at this in terms of black and gold, I want to just say this. It's almost as though moral injury is a process. It's almost like a painful adult birth canal leading you into something new and fresh. But Delroy, you really don't know what I'm going through. You're dead right, I don't. But this is part of the journey, part of this birth canal. And what I'm using the term birth canal, you are being ushered into a new way of being, a new life, something fresh. These are some of the benefits. If you've been kicked out of your organization and the wounds are painful, now I'm just going to add a few things here. You're no longer in a toxic, non-nurturing environment. And maybe for the first time, if you're going to be honest, you can breathe for the first time in years, maybe. You can now flourish, you can grow, you can expand your wings, you can do something differently. As I said before, the ability or the conditions of the toxicity was always there. All you've done, you brought it to the surface. So one of the things about moral injury, of course, I'll be finishing. Whoa, time has gone already. I'm going to be finishing on this in a bit. One of the things psychologists talks about when people go through moral injury. I think what I'm going to do. Let me put this link in now. It's something. It's I've never used it, but I went online and I'm really impressed with the website. They've got a retreat coming up. 6th to the 9th of June, I believe it is, and I asked the person's permission to share it online this evening. She said yes. There's one more space, and one of the things when you have these real disturbing events, one of the things you need to do will be able to is to stop. And a retreat gives you that space. And one of the great things about the retreat, from what I've seen, is that you're with people, not many people, you're with people who've gone through similar experiences. One of the things that one of the individuals said to me that when she was going through moral injury, in a way that it devastated her so much, she thought she was the only one until she found a community of people online who'd gone through the same thing. And I'm suggesting that maybe in your town or your city, if you're reasonably well connected, I wouldn't be surprised if you could start a small group, the self-help group. It's not about mithering your problems, but it's about, yes, sharing your story. You must share the story, but being with people who've gone through something similar, in a sense, you bring each other through this difficult situation. If you want to know how to run small groups, there's lots of stuff on YouTube, but please feel free that you can, in fact, people do, please feel free to contact me, DM me or email me, and we can set up a conversation at least. So, one of the things about values is this. One of the things about values is that quite often we don't think about values until something happens. And when something like this happens to us, it's that time we step back and think, what do I really think about this? What do I really feel about this? We don't really think about it. While life is going good, we don't think about those things that are really important. So values are somebody calls, a guy called Nick Wignall calls values is a kind of a map for life. It's those elements of our existence that guides how we interact with the world, how we treat people, and we don't really think about them until we have something as catastrophic as moral injury. He says it's a map for life. They help us navigate life's difficulties, and they shape us how we treat others. When difficulties arise, we act and hope. So what happens if you don't think about values? When difficulties arise, we act and hope for the best. But what values does, it gives us a steer how we're going to treat people. Now, of course, we have values that have been violated, but also you have people who've been perpetrators who really know that they should have treated you better, but they've gone against their values. And I suspect those individuals, I don't know how, now I'm not saying this as a cliche, either how well they sleep at night, or if they've hardened themselves so they can treat you disgracefully, what does that say about their humanity? And what does that say about their psychological well-being? And what does that say about their health? I think if values are guides, a map of life, and it shows us, shapes us how to treat each other, if we close that aspect of our lives down, I wonder what it does to us over the long term. Psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, sexually, and a whole range of things. I wonder how well we function when we block off or we hinder our humanity from being expressed. Only a thought. In fact, with moral injury, there's no winners anyway. There's the victim, there's the perpetrators. There's no winners. There really is no winners at all. Certainly in the sense of where people have been badly treated by staff members. So moral injury, it's a time to reflect. And one of the things that Nick Wignall said, and I'm going to come to him in a moment, but moral injury is it's an opportunity to reflect, to reconsider and update your values. You've never thought about it before until this has happened at work. It's time now, there's a lot of pain. It's time to step back and have a real assessment about your life. It's an opportunity. You've been given an opportunity to reassess your life. Reassessing values can also be a part of the healing process. We're really kind of digging deep. This is not just my boyfriend's fallen out with me, but this is something deep at a real deep level within our humanity. Our humanity. Of course, one of the things you can do, you can do this thing. It's very hard to, I suspect, do this thing on your own, especially if you're in a lot of pain. You need some support. Good friends who won't judge you or condemn you can be really, really good. Seeing a therapist can be excellent. Going to some place like a retreat where you're able to kind of process some stuff, I can see that being really, really helpful. But one of the things that Nick Wignall says is, and I want you to consider this as we finish off today. He said we really kind of need a values recalibration. In a sense, everything's up in the air now, and you're feeling discombobulated and all that type of stuff, and every word you want to use, disorganized, chaos, and all the rest of it. It's a time for reconsideration, recalibration. One of the things he says, now this is very simple. But one of the things he says to help us to connect is write out a bucket list. And this is what he says. Many people talk about a bucket list, but they've never written one. They've never written a bucket list. And he says, write, in terms of values, to find out, write a bucket list. And this is what he says. Bucket list, for those of you who don't know, is a list of things you'd like to do before you die. We leave the planet. Not with Richard Branson, but before you pass. So the moral injury, what you're experiencing, is an opportunity to write one. So he says, write one. And he says, or in fact, I say, this is me now, this is Delroy speaking now, you may have written one, but you never done anything about it. But moral injuries reminded you, look, I need to be doing something for me. He said, you create the bucket list, 20 or 30 things, spend some time doing it. And then he says, have a scan through the list. He said, are there some patterns? You didn't see the pattern writing down your list. But as you scan through the list, you begin to see patterns, either patterns of travel, wanting to help people, start a new business, reduce the hours at work. He says, as you read through the list, are there patterns? And the patterns may begin to indicate a recalibration of your values as what's really important. Write the list. Scan the list and see if there are any patterns. So moral injury, blackened gold. Gold is blackened for effect, for uniqueness, for dynamism, for sophistication, to stand out. And the experience that you've gone through, horrible as it is, has shaped you. I'm going to say the quote again by Marion Keyes. Love the quote. I think it's brilliant. And she's right. So, and I'm making a distinction between psychological reframing and moral injury. We could say that you could say the same thing, but I think there's a bit of an overlap. But there's something very, very different. Psychological reframing. You see something and you ask the question, "Can I look at this differently?" One. But her quote is, "I think there is pressure on." So you can do psychological reframing and there's no transformation. It's just a new perception, new idea, new thoughts. I think there is pressure on people to turn every negative into a positive. But we must be allowed to say, I went through something really strange, and awful as it was, it has altered me forever. Moral injury transforms you. In the right hands, with good support, it can lead you into a new life, a new world, a new way of being, a new way of expression, freedom, and so forth. So as horrible as it is, it doesn't have to end horribly. So there are my just few thoughts on moral injury. The person who kind of encouraged me to stick with it, do you know what? I think in one of my articles I said I might be here for another week or two. And I'm just stumbling across something today that's really piqued my interest. So do you know what? I'm gonna keep going with it because it's something that is incredibly important. and certainly the interaction I'm getting. And what's really important for me is helping others. So if you found this half-hour session helpful, share with your friends. If you have leaders or managers who may be struggling to create a culture change, give them my details. I'd love to have a conversation with them, because you can change toxic environments. They're not set in stone. They can be changed by effective leadership. Anyway, moral injury, Blackened Gold. And please, I'll finish with this, and I will finish with this now. Those of you who've gone through some stuff, you're figuring things out, what's happened to me, Blackened Gold, remember, behind, underneath the layer, the experience you've gone through, you are still skillful, you're still talented, you're still gifted, you're still unique, you're still a person with experience and a person with worth and value. Do not forget that. I end this evening. Thank you all very much indeed for your time. Please share with your friends, share with whoever you want to. If it can help people, thank you, Sonia. Yeah, thank you very much indeed. I really don't know what's happening with Facebook. I'm really annoyed because some people on Facebook, but in fact, YouTube is better, because actually you don't need to sign up to YouTube. You just need to name a channel, and then that's it. But anyway, thank you all very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. And then next Tuesday, we're back again to look more again. You know what? Moral injury. Let's see where it goes with it. Somebody asked me about how do we recover. I think we're kind of knowing that we can recover. It's never erased from our lives, but we can do some things to kind of work around it. But we certainly can build on it in terms of moving forward. Wish you well. Enjoy the rest of your evening. All the rest. Take care. Bye-bye.